Paldea has brought 107 new Pokemon into the mix, but which power players will be cracking out the W's on the World Champions roster? Let's talk about it. Hey Justin, it's Charles. How are you today? As you probably know, Ash Ketchum recently took his team of power players all the way to a World Championship victory. But perhaps the most impressive thing about the win is that the team that pulled it off was a fresh roster, as Ashy Boy is a man who challenges himself to build a brand new squad of juggernauts at the beginning of just about every new adventure, and this time was no different. So while many would have liked to see him bring a stable of fan favorites into the World Coronation Series, he instead took comparative rookies like Mr. Fish and Shirtless Donald to the biggest battles of his career, but nevertheless put on a show that the bards will sing of for years to come. And given that each generation of the anime brings a brand new Ash Ketchum team to the table for a chomp at that series' capstone championship, we can expect Paldea to be no different. But exactly which 5 of the 107 Pokemon introduced in Scarlet and Violet will be joining the Special 6 is an exciting topic to discuss. And the plan today is to break down which Paldean Pokemon should be on the team, their potential story beats, and how the team would operate at a high level. So kindly subscribe to bump us closer to the big 100. And before we jump into the thick of today's show, let's have a quick chat about the badass humanoid wolves who could be joining your team in Bloodline Heroes of Lithis. If you haven't heard of Bloodline, it's a story-rich, free-to-play RPG game for Android and iOS that has a unique marriage system allowing you to breed champions from any two bloodlines into new champions who inherit their parents' characteristics. And now is the best time to jump in for 2 reasons. Firstly, the brand new Lycan clan, known as the Gultung, is inbound this Christmas and looking good as the most brutal group of damage dealers yet to be discovered in the world of Lithis, with weapons and skill sets unique to each gender, ready to be bred into existing bloodlines to create even stronger hybrids. And for a limited time only, players can snag a Gultung champion for free by participating in a Christmas event that kicks off on December 22nd. Secondly, starting this December, all players can enjoy battling through brand new maps in the Guild War Valley of Conquerors event to conquer territories and earn rewards to create unique and powerful Bloodcraft Legends hybrid champions together with their guild members. Not to mention that in the first season, everyone has the opportunity to claim Champion Scarlet, a rare demigod and vampire combination for free, so build your guild and head into battle before it's too late. New bloodlines and legendary hybrids are constantly making their way into the game, so the possibilities are endless when it comes to seeking out the greatest hybrids to suit your playstyle. And Bloodline is free to play for both Android and iOS, so download it and try out the game for free with my link in the description or by scanning the on-screen QR code. To get a special starter pack worth $20 that includes 3 stamina potions, 100,000 gold, and 100 diamonds. So don't forget to get a free Lycan champion this Christmas starting December 22nd. And with that said, on to the meat and potatoes of today's chat. You, Miss Molly, and the entire fandom would be flabbergasted if Ash Ketchum did not add one of the Charcadet evolutions to his team, but the question is, should he evolve his Charcadet of Destiny into Armarouge or Ceruledge? It's a tough call as these are both 2 of the coolest, or should I say the hottest, Pokemon to come out of Scarlet and Violet, and I would probably tip my hat to Ceruledge as my personal favorite of the 2, but I think that 1, Ceruledge is more aesthetically suited to playing the role of antagonist in the context of the anime, and the grudge-bearing, merciless tendencies suggested by the Pokedex reaffirm that fit. 2, Armarouge's aesthetics simply have a sparky, intense Ketchum feel to them, not to mention that the warrior mentality and loyalty attributed to it in the Pokedex are Ketchum characteristics through and through. And 3, unless we count Mimey, who is in practical terms more Delia's Pokemon than Ash's Pokemon, Ash has never had a full-fledged psychic type Pokemon as a team member, so it would be cool to bring one on board at long last. As for Armarouge's storyline, the duality of the Charcadet evolutions practically begs for a series-long rivalry between the Charcadex of Ash and Ash's rival, in which Ash's evolved Armarouge will eventually come out on top of the rival's evolved Ceruledge by series end. And to be sure, Armarouge has a Lucario-like essence and cool factor to it that would likely see it positioned as the de facto seasonal ace. I mean, these 2 even sport the exact same base stat total. If there is something we know about the Pokemon anime, it is that its patterns tend to be repeated, and that is why I think that Baxcalibur is very likely to make this generation's Team Ketchum team as this saga's 600 club representative. After all, XY gave us Goodra, Sun and Moon gave us Melmetal, and Journeys gave us Dragonite. So it would be fitting to continue the 600 base stat total tradition with Scarlet and Violet's Dragon and Ice type pseudo-legendary. Not to mention that Ash's only Ice type Pokemon to date are Glalie and Lapras, so it would be cool to see him thaw out out a slot for another cold killer. Also, it goes without saying that Baxcalibur appears to have drawn its inspiration from the kaiju genre of films, a fun reference to Japanese pop culture that fans around the world would appreciate. And in terms of story beats, in Pokemon Journeys, Ash befriended Dragonite as a Dragonair but caught it as a Dragonite. So this time, it would be cool to see Ash take a weak, frightened little Frigibax under his wing and train it up into a heavy hitter just in time for whatever tournament lays ahead. The phrase Ash's Flamigo may have an odd ring to it, but the concept has a lot of potential. Because even though Flamigo has been called out as a lazy pants Pokemon design, basically just a flamingo, the genius of the design is exactly that it is basically just a flamingo. And I think there is so much comedic potential in contrasting a vain, explosive powerhouse personality with its memishly simple aesthetics. Flamigo could be set up as a sass box on par with Ash's most ruly Pokemon of all time, and you just know that you want to see Big Pink going postal on Ash, Team Rocket, and whatever else or whoever else gets in its way. It also checks Birdkeeper Ash's flying type box for the generation, not to mention that its typing hedges against Ash's issues with ground type Pokemon. And if you've seen the hilarious Dondozo Tatsugiri Flamigo strategy that some players are using online, well, I'm sure that Ashy Boy could likewise cook up something absolutely out of the box and absolutely crazy. As for a story arc, I can imagine Flamigo entering Ash's story as a stray, much like Lapras did back in the Orange Islands, but somewhat edgier and ready to discipline his retainer on a whim. And yet, despite the testiness, a Pokemon who will become a great friend, with whom Ash will be sad to part ways when it eventually returns to its flock. It may be 26 years late to the party, but it is prime time for Primeape to re-enter the fray and annihilate Team Ketchum's competition by evolving into Annihilape. As its angsty teenager vibes would cover that angle of the team's personality set, not to mention that its novel ghost fighting type split would give Ash immunity to both normal and fighting type attacks. Of course, I have to admit that my reason for wanting to include Annihilape on the team is pretty selfish. That selfish reason being that I simply just want to see Ash's Primeape back in action. Primeape's storyline is certainly irrelevant to the average viewer in 2022, but when Primeape joined the squad back in the late 90s, I was pumped to see one of my favorites from the game make it onto Ash's team, only to be let down when Ash left it to train with Anthony following his victory in the P1 Grand Prix and never, ever came back for it. Sounds familiar. That said, 2.5 decades later, it must be strong as all hell, and we finally do have a viable reason for it to return to the show. That is, to flaunt the brand new capstone to its evolution line. I envision Annihilape as the edgy man's Sirfetch'd, and just as Ash's Sirfetch'd has made a name for itself in Pokemon Journeys, Annihilape would have huge potential as the go-getter who does everything to better itself, earning the respect of opponents and fans even as Golden Boy Armarouge takes center stage. As you may know, the evolution from Bakugo to Broly is triggered by repeatedly using the evolution line's new signature move, Rage Fist. So it would be fun to see Primeape reunite with Ash at a P1 Grand Prix festival, link up, and eventually trigger a clutch evolution while fighting alongside his old friend to end an opponent when the Alakazams hit the fan. When we discussed the reasons why Armarouge would fit right into the Ketchum 6, one point of interest was that it would be Ash's very first proper Psychic Pokemon team member, and the same logic applies for the Fairy and Steel-type Tinkaton. It would be great to see Ash's first proper Fairy fighter taking swings at opponents, and his only other Steel-type Pokemon thus far have been Melmetal and Lucario for a grand total of 2, so there are plenty of new ways in which Ash could test his mettle with that typing as well. To me, Tinkaton projects the same cute but unhinged psychopath energy as Rebecca from Edge Runners, and it would be a blast to see her dropping foes left and right to elevate Ash as Rebecca elevated David. Ideally, we would see Tinkaton come into Ash's life as a Tinkatink who would gradually grow from a small ineffectual pink thing wielding a small ineffectual hammer into a somewhat effectual pink thing wielding a somewhat effectual hammer into a Corviknight murdering demon wielding a 220-pound death hammer. Tinkaton could easily become the Yandere equivalent of Ash's Bayleaf, which is both weird and cute and everything in between. Lastly, we have Yellow Mickey himself, the broken mouse with too many star-studded achievements to list. You know all about Ash's Pikachu already, so I won't bore you with a recap of its history, but I will say that the question when it comes to the upcoming Saga's battles is what exactly Pikachu's Terra type will turn out to be. Personally, I think it will be really interesting and highly marketable to see it take on a flying Terra type, which would further mitigate the team's potential difficulties with ground types. But what do you think? As far as story beats go, Ash and Pikachu's friendship matured long ago, show, but it would be wonderful to get a truly heartfelt exploration of that bond. In Pokemon Journeys episode 30, we saw Pikachu run away from Ash, jealous of his grating fixation on Riolu. I hear you, buddy. And it made for a solid plot piece. So hopefully the next saga of the anime will find other interesting ways to explore both the depth of their bond as well as the tensions that exist in even the best of friendships. All in all, I'm pretty pleased with this team build. Some may be surprised that there is not a single starter Pokemon on the squad, but I actually liked how Journeys buckled a decades-long trend by giving all 3 starter Pokemon to go, because it opened up more options to Ash and also made the anime less predictable. So I think it would be nifty as a shifty to once again see Ash's friends raise the starter Pokemon, giving Ash an extra 1 to 3 slots for a more surprising and interesting team build. I also ran this team through the Maryland team builder, and as you can see, while ground and fairy type attacks present the biggest threat to the team, there are numerous ways to buffer against those weaknesses, including Flamigo's immunity to fighting, Armarouge and Tinkaton's resistances to fairy, and room for various terrestrialization solutions and other counters. P.S. Brassius would be in tears against this team. Anyways, I had all kinds of options drafted for Ash's Paldean squad, and while this is the special 6 that I settled on, how about you? Which Paldean Pokemon deserve a spot on the team, and why? I'm curious what you think, and as always, let's chat. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have been out for about a month now, so I'm curious. How do Pokemon Scarlet and Violet stack up to other Pokemon games you have played in terms of the fun factor and the fun factor alone? We all know that it is a technical mess at this point, but looking just at the fun factor, do you think these games are as fun, more fun, or less fun than past Pokemon games? Personally, this is the most fun I've had with the series since Generation 2. I do play every new mainline game, but they typically just feel like mildly entertaining retreads of what came before, and it's the spin-off games, anime, and TCG that tend to be where I get my biggest kicks out of the Pokemon franchise. So kudos to Scarlet and Violet for getting me all fired up about the games for the first time in a long time. That said, I think that the most fun I will have ever had with mainline Pokemon games by the end of it all will always have been with Generation 1 and 2. Partially because they were so fresh, new, and so ingrained with the spirit of the times back then, but also because when I first played them, I was a kid without any responsibilities aside from attending school and trying not to pee the bed, so I had tons and tons of time to squeeze every last bit of fun out of them. But how about you? How does the fun factor of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet stack up against other entries in the series, and what is the most fun that you have ever had with a Pokemon video game? Well, with that said, have yourself a great day, and we will talk again soon.